Hey Kathy, what you got there?
It's my book.
Oh my gosh, that's so great. Recently Just published. That's awesome. Well, let's head out and look at some of the places in the book. You want to?
Let's do.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, so we did a little bit of everything. Out of her, we got her back. We got her tummy. We went on a walk. We did this, we did that, we did that.
I would drive down here just for the cornbread. Where are we headed, Kathy?
Willis Rock Church.
And what's a rock church?
My great-great-uncle Bob Childress built 6 rock churches that are scattered out throughout the Blue Ridge Mountains. And that's one of the 6.
Leaves are starting to change here already. Oh, this is gorgeous down here.
There it is.
Ah, there it is. Here we go.
So this is Willis. This was I think the very last of the 6 rock churches to be built in 1956. And 67, I think, it turned into an interfaith church. And then in 2003, it was a Baptist church. And at the time I published my book, it was not active as anything, but there's a sign out here now that looks like it is New Beginnings House of God. So that's good, it's being used again. And here on the corner, if I remember correctly from the one time up here, the cornerstone, 1954 it says. I think I said 6. Willis Presbyterian Church, 1954. Some of the churches he didn't actually build. Some of them were already functioning and built, and he just rocked them on the outside. And I don't know specifically if this is one of those or not. But it's one of the 6 churches that he rocked.
When you say he rocked them, he put rock on the outside of them?
Yes.
They're originally like a frame building?
Some were. I don't know which ones. I don't know if this one was already a church or not, but
And Bob Childress was a Presbyterian.
Yes. He grew up in these mountains and decided he wanted to be a Presbyterian pastor. So he went to college and he went to seminary, and he came back to his mountains and built these churches.
I like that old door. What were the people like here in the mountains when he started preaching?
When he grew up, according to his biography, The Man Who Moved a Mountain, it was quite a wild place with gunfights and moonshine steals.
Where are we headed next, Kathy?
We're headed to Buffalo Mountain Presbyterian Church.
Wow, this looks like Switzerland here. Look at this, we're heading over a one-lane bridge. That's a new bridge. Oh, this is beautiful back here.
This is Little Flock Presbyterian. It's not Presbyterian, this is Little Flock Church. Bob Childress preached there. That was not one that he was pastor of, but he preached there several times.
My goodness, what did they say? It's out there a ways? Or how did they put it in the book?
It's a good ways out there.
Well, it sure is a good ways out there. I can't imagine building a church. And it's such a remote location.
This is still Buffalo Mountain Road.
Now we're really going up. Gosh, I wonder what the elevation is. I wouldn't want to travel this in the winter. That's for sure. Here's some civilization. Oh, that's beautiful. Look at that barn.
There's the cemetery.
Oh my gosh, there it is.
See the rock wall around it?
There's the church.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, that's so cool.
Buffalo Mountain.
Oh my gosh, we
Presbyterian
found it.
Church.
I didn't think we'd find it. Oh wow, look at there's Buffalo Mountain over there. This is absolutely gorgeous here. Look at the hawks flying up there. Well, we made it, Kathy. Let's go over here. Let's go over here to look at the view. Oh, that's so gorgeous.
Bob Childress and most of his children are buried out here in this cemetery.
How do we get in here? Oh, I see, right here. Oh, there's Conduff's grave. I remember him from the book.
Yes, Conduff is the oldest of Bob's children. And here's Bob and Lilia and Hattie.
Oh my goodness, this is the Bob Childress.
This is Bob Childress. Happy are the dead who die in the Lord. for they rest from their labors, and their deeds go with them. Lilia, home at last, a godly mother, a faithful servant. Patty, she came to raise our hearts to heaven. She goes to call us there.
Hattie was their daughter.
Yes. Patty died when she was 23 of hydrocephalus. She was born with.
It's amazing to see his grave. Wow. Is this his son Paul? Their son Paul?
Yes. Paul and Hannah's infant child, Walter Boland.
Now, why is Bob Childress buried here at this particular church? Do you know?
This was the church that he spent his whole life at.
Oh, okay.
He was a circuit riding preacher, so he preached at a lot of the other churches as well, but always this one, I think.
And is it still a Presbyterian church?
Yes, I think so.
There's another Childress. It's Brian, their son Brian.
One of his sons. His wife Pauline. Here's Evelyn. Evelyn is his oldest daughter.
What's that? Evelyn was the oldest daughter?
Mm-hmm. I think all the children are out here except for 2, so there 6 of the children are buried out here.
How many children did Bob and his
8.
wife have?
There were 8. There were 2 wives. One died in the 1918 flu. Marie.
Marie Childress.
Marie Childress Lucas. Her husband Lee.
Childress Road and Buffalo Road.
At the corner of Childress and Buffalo.
Now, tell me again how you're a Childress.
My great-grandfather is Bob Childress's brother.
Okay,
My great-grandfather Bill, Papa Bill.
okay. And so Bob Childress, the circuit riding preacher, was your great-great-uncle?
Yes,
Okay. And your grandmother was a Childress.
yes.
What was her name?
Bonnie.
And
Bonnie Childress Pike.
when was she born?
1922.
So she's no longer living, but she would have been 100 years old this year.
Yes.
Let's walk around the church. You actually have a picture of this being built.
In the book.
Yeah, it's in the book.
Here's the cornerstone, 1929.
And you're right, it's still a Presbyterian church. Stuart
And
Childress is the pastor.
This is interesting. He's not the pastor anymore, but he's Bob Childress's grandson, who was a pastor of a lot of these churches. He's retired now, but apparently he's preaching this Sunday here.
Oh, wow, that's wonderful.
Well, I might be wrong. He might still be pastoring, but I thought he was retired.
I wonder where they hauled all that stone from.
Local, but I don't remember where.
So beautifully done.
Sometimes Bob would have a contest and see who could get the prettiest stone to put on the church. And I don't know if this church, I don't know if they did that with Buffalo Mountain, but when I see that pink stone up there, I wonder.
Oh, look at that. Somebody was proud of finding that one, I bet.
When we go to Mayberry Church, you'll see some quite impressive stones that they had a contest to see who could get the prettiest stone.
Oh, look, there's a spring house down there. There's some sort of building down there. Maybe it's a spring house, I'm not sure. I love this little building down here. Oh, that's so pretty. What is that? It was obviously built the same time as the church. Oh, you know what? It probably was a spring house. Yes, it was a spring house. Look at that.
It's on top of the hill.
Oh my gosh, that is just so pretty.
So cute. The manse is up here.
Oh, okay. Can we walk up there?
Yes.
Is it still a manse?
I don't know. Over here's the school that was a part of the church.
That's a great old building. I wonder why there's no windows on the first floor. That's very odd. And so this was where Bob Childress lived up here on the hill.
Yes.
Now you have a picture of them cutting down logs for the church with the manse in the background. Be interesting to compare that picture to this view, but it's taken right about here.
Yeah, we really don't know what was going on in that picture though.
No, that's true, but it was
here.
that picture was taken here. We're headed next to Mabry Mill on the Blue Ridge Parkway. Headed into the Mabry Mill gift shop.
There's my book.
Oh my gosh, there's your book, Kathy. Wow, it's right next to The Man Who Moved the Mountain. That's the book about Bob Childress. How many books are you signing, Kathy?
I think there are 6 here.
Wow, that is beautiful. It was built around 1910 by Edwin Mabry. That's what it looked like before it was restored. It's falling apart. Oh, that's so gorgeous. Oh my goodness. Such a relaxing sound, isn't it? That is just so ingenious. Oh, it's coming from up here. You don't need a lot of water to run a mill. Here is a log cabin.
You're going to like this.
I'm gonna like this? Oh, it's a blacksmith shop. Look at that. Oh, that's so cool. Doesn't seem safe to be working with fire. Oh, it's maybe, well, yeah, they're working with fire over there. You're in a log structure. Oh, wow.
Hello.
Hello.
How are y'all today?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm all right. Getting close to quitting time.
Oh, is that right? What time does the mill close?
5. That's about an hour.
How much of this is original? Is all of this original?
Do what?
Is all of this original?
No, No, the mill is.
The mill is original.
That part down there, this was added on to it after the Park Service bought it, just to cover up a sawmill.
Okay.
When you get right down there, where that black foam is, that was all original.
Okay.
From there
And
down.
we can walk down back there?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Right up here, come on in.
All right.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, from right here down. This was the original. All of that down there. All the way back.
Wow. I like how it smells. I can smell the ground grain. You can still smell that. Oh wow, look at there's the wheel. Where are the grindstones?
Pardon me?
Where would the grindstones
They're
be?
in that round box.
They're inside that box?
Yeah, right here. Just from right here you can kind of see more of it. My son.
The grindstones were inside the wooden boxes.
They're inside there.
Oh wow.
You have two. The bottom one is stationary, and the top one is the only one that turns. It does all the grinding,
Okay.
and it would just keep on going around, and it would come out here and go in this box.
Okay. What were people grinding here? Wheat? Rye?
Corn.
Oh, it was corn.
Corn, yeah.
Oh.
That's all he did. But now the Park Service, when they bought it, they started doing some flour, buckwheat flour, and they ground that over there on that mill. The reason that the Mabrys didn't grind anything like that, they didn't have a sifter that could, separate it. And when the Park Service, what would happen when the Mabrys had it, they'd bring your corn here and grind it, and they'd put it in here, and then they'd dip it out and put it in a bag, and then you had to have a sifter like this to sift it,
Yeah.
to get it separated. So when the Park Service bought it, they built this elevator, they call it. It's got little buckets inside there, and it carried it upstairs and sifted it, and then it would come back down through these tubes, grits and cornmeal or flour or whatever, and then you get it out of the box. It'd all be sifted though. You wouldn't have to pull it.
Right.
Kept it separated.
Yeah? This is a wonderful mill.
Oh yeah, it's in good shape. They just need to do some work on it as far as getting the gears hooked back up. They had a little problem. See, we've been shut down for 2 years, though.
Oh,
with
because
the
of COVID, yeah.
And
Yeah.
we come in this year, it was a mess. I mean, one guy come in here and worked the whole week trying to clean it up. I mean, it
Is that right?
cobwebs and dust, and fortunately we didn't have any animals that got in.
Look at that cabin. Well, people were shorter. People were shorter, but my goodness, I've got a duck. That's pretty wild. Oh, wow, look at this. Spinning wheel. There's a There's a loom. A chair. Life in the mountains of Southern Virginia.
These are the kinds of chairs that my grandma had. And,
Your grandma had chairs like this?
And in the little country store across from her house, that's the kind of chair the men would go sit in and chat together in the middle of the day.
This is a plow pulled by a horse. And this looks like a horse-drawn equipment for planting. An old iron kettle, cooking kettle. Another piece of horse-drawn equipment. Where are we headed next, Kathy?
Slate Mountain Presbyterian Church. Correctly, it's not really on the road, it's on your side up on a hill.
Yeah, we have to turn left this Slate
There it is up there.
Okay, yeah, there it is up there. Oh, there's a road right here. Okay.
There we go. This is another of the 6 rock churches.
Beautiful here. Out in the middle of nowhere, pretty much. We're in the town called Meadows of Dan, is that right?
Yes.
That's beautiful. It's really quiet here. It's so peaceful and quiet here, isn't it?
Yes.
Look at those steps. This is not for the faint of heart. I don't think I want to come out these steps in the wintertime. Look at the view out this window. It's just gorgeous. (1932). So they put an addition on in 2012. Yeah, they did.
Nice.
Yeah.
Look at this little church.
Oh, that's cute.
Dillon Chapel.
Oh, they tell me of a home far beyond the skies. They tell me of a home far away. Oh, they tell me of a home where no storm clouds rise. Oh, they tell me of an unclouded day. Oh, the land of cloudless days. Oh, the land of an unclouded sky. Oh, they tell me of a land where no storm clouds rise. Oh, they tell me of an unclouded day. Oh, they tell me of a king and his beauty there. They tell me that mine eyes shall behold, where he sits on a throne that is whiter than snow, in a city that is made of gold. Oh, the land of cloudless days. Oh, the land of an unclouded sky.
Chrissy Cupboard.
Downtown Meadows of Dan.
Cute town.
Yeah.
There's poppies.
Okay. Let's turn off here. Well, good morning. What is your name?
My name's Leslie Shelor. I was born and raised in Meadows of Dan, and I have this little shop up here in Meadows of Dan, and we have Miss Vestal's books. And we're excited. It's the Childress cousins. They're back there in the book room.
Oh, wow. We can't wait to see them.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Leslie. You got a beautiful store here.
Well, we have gifts in this room. We kind of specialize in alpaca products from Peru. In the next room. Down in the bottom, we started as a yarn shop and bookstore back in 2005.
Okay.
And so down in the lower section, we have books, things for kids, things for kitchen, lots of jewelry. And so just make yourself home.
Great. How long have you had the store?
Well, I've had the store since 2005.
Okay.
But I've been in this location this time 3 years. It's a little complicated.
Oh. It's
we
beautiful.
also have Maudie, our official greeter.
Oh, hi, Maudie. How you doing?
It's kind of hard to get pictures.
I think Maudie wants to be held. Let's go check out your book, Kathy. There's your book. The book and the author. And how many people live in Meadows of Dan?
I was just told about 1,700.
Okay, that's pretty sizable for this area of Virginia. Yeah.
It depends on what you count as Meadows of Dan. The postal code basically covers parts of Carroll, parts of Floyd, and parts of Patrick County.
Okay.
Yeah.
The three counties come together right here?
Yeah,
That way?
yeah.
Okay.
Within a mile, you come up to Mabry Mill. That's actually in Floyd County.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we were
the
there
restaurant, I
yesterday.
think, is in Patrick. One of the churches that Mr. Childress, founded, Slate Mountain. The church is in Floyd, and the cemetery's in Patrick.
Oh, is that
Because of the
We were there
way the
yesterday,
lines
yeah.
run.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and then I have, and then just over the other side of the parkway, not far, Carroll County comes
Wow.
in.
Do you have any Childresses come in the store?
Yes, occasionally. Yeah,
Oh,
see, I
wow.
grew up in Mayberry and Slate Mountain churches, so I still attend Mayberry.
Oh, you do? Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
and Stuart was the grandson of Robert Childress, but I also knew Brian and Robert. When I was born, Brian was the minister at Slate Mountain.
And that's one of Bob's sons.
Yeah, that's one of Bob Childress's children,
right.
and of course they're prominent in the book.
Yes, they are.
Because
yeah.
they were the cousins. So
Yeah.
I liked the book a lot because I knew more about those folks. Because Mr. Childress died before I was born.
Yeah,
I just heard stories about him.
Right. He was died in 56.
56.
Yeah.
I was born in 59.
So you heard stories about him
Oh, I
living
heard
in this
stories
area?
all my life about
Oh,
him.
my
Yeah,
goodness.
he was a definite influence in the area, for sure.
Wow.
Yeah, and then of course I knew Mr. Brian Childress up until he died, and also Robert up until he
Wow.
died.
Do you
Because
have
they
any-
stayed here
Yeah.
in the area.
That's so wonderful. Do you have any stories that you could share about?
What's that?
Do you have any stories you could share with me about Bob Childress that you remember?
Well, probably none that are already known. My mother was one of the children that he went around and gathered and took to the movies and took to church. So,
Oh, really? And
yeah.
did he take them by car, or did he have a little
He had
bus?
an old Model T car, and he took it. I think he started his ministry on a horse, but he eventually got an old Model T car, and probably later there were better cars, but there's lots of pictures of him with the Model T.
Yeah.
And he would take them. He would just go around and gather up the kids in the car, and just pile them in, and take them to church. And Mom said the first time she ever went to a movie, he had taken the kids, probably to Hillsville, to a movie
Wow.
up there. So this was pretty rural, remote area. The roads were bad.
Right.
Yeah, because they were mud up until the time the highways came through, probably in the 20s, but still the side roads were bad for a long time. I remember some roads where you'd be going along and you'd just come to a place where the creek went across the road and you had to go through. So I remember that in my teenage years when I was driving.
Oh my goodness.
So things have changed a lot in the last 40 years.
His legacy, what do you think his biggest legacy was, Bob Childress?
Well, the churches, of course, and the kindness. I think people remember him mostly for his kindness, and his inclusiveness. He had a good word for everybody. It's the best I have ever heard.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. He was, it was not just the Presbyterians that loved him. He was kind of community oriented. He did a lot for people.
He brought people together.
Yeah.
And he brought them up. He encouraged education. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
We were at the Buffalo Mountain Church yesterday, and there's a school there. Did he teach at that school?
I don't think he actually taught. The Presbyterians are big on education.
Right.
The Presbyterians came in here even before Mr. Childress and founded schools. There was a high school, Central Academy, that they sponsored. Lots of little schools all throughout the small communities. My grandfather wouldn't have got an education unless it was for the Presbyterian women in the Dobbins section. They came down and did the school. One of my great aunts was one of the girls that came down to teach down there, and she met my great uncle and married him and stayed. But this was in the 20s.
So the state of Virginia was not building schools?
Not so much. We had subscription schools before that, but the Methodists came in and founded a lot of little schools in the mountains, and the Presbyterians, and then eventually, probably in the 30s, the state started taking over and putting in schools. But before that,
there were not little one-room schools around here. They were all church schools.
Yeah. There were one-room schools, but a lot of them were sponsored by the churches.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, and now my mother went to a state-sponsored school. Not too far from Slate Mountain Church, And so she was born in 1934.
Okay.
So by that time, they had a 2-room school. They were up and coming, big community.
Wow. That is so fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing all those memories and those
Yeah,
stories.
Yeah.
Thank you again, Leslie.
All right, good to see
Great
ya.
to meet you.
They tell me of a home far beyond the sky. They tell me of a home far away. Oh, they tell me of a home where no storm clouds rise. Oh, they tell me of an uncloudy day. Where it sits on the throne that is fire and snow. In a city that is made of gold. And he got the whole world in his hands. 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 He got the whole world in his hands.
Time for another meal at Mabry Mill. Here we are at the Mayberry Trading Post, built 1892. Hello. Hello.
It's closed.
Oh, it's closed.
Oh, you go ahead and look around.
Oh, wow. Huh.
Closed last Friday.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I'll back up now.
You just bought this store?
My wife just bought the store, yeah.
Okay.
So we'll reopen it back up as a country store.
Wow. And when did you say it was built?
1892.
Oh, that's right. That's what yeah, it says that outside. I love this old door. Oh my gosh. That's really original.
1892 when it first opened as a post office.
Oh, is that right?
Right. First 4 years it was classified as a post office for Mayberry.
So what are your plans? You're going to make it into like a little country store for
Yeah, we're gonna put it
locals
back
and
country.
visitors and
Yeah, it'd still be a tourist thing. It's you know, have the old style candies, canned stuff. Wife is a quilter, daughter's a crocheter, other daughter's an artist. I'm a blacksmith,
you're a blacksmith?
and basket weaver and chair canger. So,
Oh my.
yeah, and then we got potters from Floyd, wood turners. It'll be country. I mean, just
Yeah.
not as much as they.
Are you from here?
Yeah, I'm from Meadows of Dan. My wife, she was born right down the road.
Do you know any Childresses? No, you don't know anybody with the name Childress.
You know any Pucketts?
Yeah, well, we've heard of Granny Puckett.
And Shelby Puckett.
Okay, well, my wife, I think Shelby is maybe a cousin.
Oh, good.
My wife is a Puckett, so that's part. She's traded back to the
Scotts that used to own it originally, and she's also kin to the Yates that previous owners. So it's,
Well, I'm so glad you're going to open it back up.
yeah, we just shut it down, clean it out.
Oh, this is a neat old place. It
April,
really
we'll
is.
start back, this will be the first thing now.
Well, we got to see it before it was. Yeah, I want to go back in here again and make sure I get all of this, because this is kind of like a before look. Yeah. It's got the original counters in here. It's got all the original shelves, and that's pretty neat.
Shelves, drawers.
And the floor. It's got the original floor.
Yeah. See, this is actually originally was the post office here. This is part of what's
Look
left.
at this back here. Oh my gosh.
And then goes
Those are
there's 1 year
great.
missing. I think it's 39.
Oh my gosh.
So these was the original post office boxes.
What? Oh look, there's a
Actually,
Jack
this is-
Childress.
Well, but the Jasper Hensley, that was my wife's great grandfather.
Is that right?
And so,
Gosh.
yeah, then this is the Childress.
Yeah, there's a
I mean,
Childress
some
in
of them
there.
are missing, but that was the original.
You mean this was this was the only people living in this town?
No, there was more boxes that have got.
Oh, there's a
Yeah,
few.
here's
There's a
your
few
thing.
down there.
Here's just something on the history of the, when it was
Oh
post office.
my gosh.
Yeah, this was a post office before Meadows of Dan had a post office.
This is very rural around here, isn't it? Very rural. I love this old window. That's great.
All that will stay. It's just, we got to paint, fix up a few things.
Well, we'll need to come back and see what you've done with this. It's pretty awesome. I imagine it had like a potbelly stove in the middle at one
Yeah.
time, right? Like right here, this would have been like a big old potbelly stove.
Originally, there was a coal burning potbelly stove.
Oh, okay. So you remember when this was like a functioning
Well,
place,
see,
yeah?
30 years ago, I worked at a farm up the road here. I ate lunch here every day.
Oh, you did?
We
Okay.
come in, there would be benches, stools, and we sat back here and eat beanie wings or whatever off the shelf. Yeah, that was 30
Wow.
Oh, my.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for the tour. There's some really neat, look at that scroll work up there. That's beautiful. Well, you
Yeah,
you've
that'll
got
all
some,
be put back, and actually I'll have original
that's really neat.
upstairs.
Well, you got your work cut out for you, but that's great. You got a plan. Mayberry Trading Post. Nice to meet you all. Thank you. Have a good day. Where are we heading next, Kathy?
Mayberry Presbyterian Church, one of the rock churches.
And now it's called Mayberry. Does it have anything to do with the fictional town of Mayberry with Andy Griffith?
That's a good question, and a lot of people, and I would say yes, that this is the real Mayberry, not the church, but the community is the real Mayberry that the TV show was made about, except it's the show is not really about any particular place.
Okay, tell me again about Mayberry. Is there or isn't there a Mayberry?
Mayberry's a fictional place.
Okay.
Mount Airy, North Carolina has claimed that they are the Mayberry because that's where Andy Griffith came from. But we're standing now in the Mayberry community, and this is the Mayberry almost definitely from where that name came from. But that doesn't mean the show is about this area. The show's not really about any real area. It's a fictional place, but this is Mayberry, and this is the Mayberry that Andy Griffith would have known.
Okay, because how far are we from Mount Airy? Not that far.
Not far. No, we're just across the Virginia line, and Mount Airy's on the North Carolina side of the state line.
Okay. Well, let's check out Mayberry Presbyterian Church.
Yeah, this is one of the rock churches, and in my opinion, it's the cutest.
So quiet here.
Historical marker at the front.
$1925.
The cornerstone is hiding, but we'll see if we can get to it.
Oh, look at that. Oh,
Isn't that just the cutest little church?
that is the cutest little church.
Such beautiful rock work. The pastor of this church also pastors Bluemont, and I think that's been the case for a lot of years.
So is this still a Presbyterian church?
It is. This is still Presbyterian. Leslie, who we met at Poppy's, is one of the members here.
Oh, wow. Wow. All I can say is wow.
So this is the Angel Overlook, and this is where the background of the book cover was made.
So show me where you stood.
I don't know exactly, but I shot out that direction.
Wow.
Now you're turning toward North Carolina and you see Pilot Mountain.
I see it over there. That funny little humped mountain.
The knob. Right here.
Turn here.
Friends Mission Road. Cemetery.
Oh my goodness. So tell me about the cemetery.
This is the Childress family cemetery. This is where my great-grandfather and great-grandmother and great-great-grandfather and great-grandmother are buried. Careful here.
Yeah.
The stone in the middle is my great-great-grandparents. This is Babe and Lum Childress, who are the parents of my great-grandfather William Bill Childress and also Bob Childress. Babe and Lum had 9 children, and the book I wrote is about the children of 2 of those children, Bill and Bob. And these 2 stones are my great-grandparents, Papa Bill and Etta. My great-grandmother died when she was only 38 after childbirth. This stone is Bill and Bob's oldest brother, Haston. The stone says Hastings, but I think his name was Haston, Hasten. And this was his first wife, Mary Alice, who died in the 1918 flu pandemic.
It's beautiful here. So peaceful.
Bob Childress also had a wife to die in the 1918 flu pandemic. This is Pearl. I can't read who this one is. Nettie was one of Bill and Bob's sisters. She married Willie Whitaker. You can tell it's a Childress cemetery by the stone around the walls.
So William and Mary were your great-grandparents?
Mary Etta. She went
Mary
by Etta.
Those were your great-grandparents?
Bill, right. Bill and Etta.
And their parents are buried here in the middle?
Yes. Babe and Lum. James Anderson and Columbia Smith.
And they were the parents of Bob, the circuit preacher?
Yes. Down the hill, this is Haston's house. Now, I'm sure that whole thing was not Haston's house, but the story is that he built the old section of that house. And he also had the flu in 1918 when his wife had the flu, and she died of the flu, but he didn't. And he couldn't go to the funeral because he had the flu, so they buried her here so he could look out the upstairs window and watch the funeral. So that's a story of part of how this cemetery got started. Very careful here. There used to be a cow pasture. The first time I came, had to go through a barbed wire fence to get through, and had to get permission first so they would put the bull away before I could come to the cemetery. But now it's not a pasture.
Whose cabin was this?
Mabel Childress Nichols said that she lived there at some time during her childhood.
And we are not far from the Childress Family Cemetery.
That's true.
We just climbed a really big mountain, a lot of curvy roads, and now we're on the Blue Ridge Parkway. What's the next church we're headed to, Kathy?
Bluemont Presbyterian.
And it's one of the 6 rock churches.
Yes.
And it's still a Presbyterian church?
It is.
There it is.
Yeah, we just
Oh my gosh,
missed the
we just,
driveway.
okay, we gotta turn around. All right, let's head out to the church. I love this wood fence. So this is the back of the church.
But the side that's facing the parkway.
Yeah. Oh, that's cute. $19.19.
So this is the same pastor who preaches at Mayberry Presbyterian. He preaches at Mayberry on Sunday mornings and then comes and preaches at Bluemont.
Which Childress is this?
This is Bob's youngest son, Robert Jr., and his wife, Jean.
Oh, look at that! So what's this cabin, Kathy?
This is Puckett's Cabin. Granny Puckett and her husband lived not really in this cabin, but in a house that's here on this land. And she was a midwife. She delivered thousands of babies on this mountain over several decades, including my ancestors and a lot of the people that are in my book. This cabin was built for a relative of theirs, and it's what's been preserved, not the house, but it's to remember Granny Puckett, who was quite the formidable woman in the mountain.
What time period did she live in? Was this early 20th century?
Yes. 1800s also.
Okay, she straddled both centuries.
Yeah, this sign should give you exactly her dates.
Love this fence. Oh, it's so beautiful here.
Now, the sad part about her story is that she delivered all these babies successfully, but she had several of her own and none of them lived beyond infancy. And I think they're all buried somewhere out here on the land, but I've never walked around.
Oh, there's a picture of her.
Born in 1837. Lived to be 102.
She charged $1, and when times were good, $6. Oh, that's the last child she delivered. Oh my goodness. Let's go take a walk up here and look at the cabin. You see the axe marks in the wood.
In my book, there are a couple of photos of Bob Childress standing in front of this cabin.
You see anything in there?
Boards. You might want to look in this.
Okay. It's a fireplace. I see an old fireplace in there. See the marks from an axe, some kind of cutting tool. Some sort of outbuilding for animals or drying things.
They tell me of a king and his beauty there. They tell me that mine eyes shall behold, where he sits on a throne that is whiter than snow, in a city that is made of gold. Oh, the land of cloudless days, oh, the land of an uncloudy sky.
Kathy, what's the name of the church we're going to?
Dinwiddie Presbyterian.
We're in Carroll Country, right?
Carroll County.
Carroll County. We're in Carroll County. Wow, there it is. Oh my gosh. This is gorgeous up here. So we're in Carroll County. But it is still a Presbyterian church. It's beautiful.
Land of cloudless days, oh, the land of an unclouded sky. Oh, they tell me of a home where no storm clouds rise. Oh, they tell me of an unclouded day. Oh, the land of cloudless days, oh, the land of an unclouded sky. Oh, they tell me of a land where no storm cloud cries. Oh, they tell me of an unclouded day.
This is the Carroll County Courthouse. In 1912, there was a gunfight at the courthouse. Mr. Floyd Allen did not like his sentence, and a gunfight ensued, and 5 people were killed. I'm at the Hillsville Diner and got me a good Southern meal.
I think that's it. Yep, that's it.
That's the library. Here we go.
How are you? It's good to see you.
Hi.
This is Darlene.
Katherine Vestal is a great-grandniece of Reverend Bob Childress. She's an educator. She lives, I think, Salisbury, North Carolina now. And without any further ado, I'm going to let her come and talk to you and tell you about her Childress cousins.
Oh, thank you. And most of Mabel's stories were told directly by her youngest 2 children, Albert and Pearl. And those were my contacts for Mabel's story. So I'm going to read you 3 short sections of stories that they told me about Mabel. So, Mabel and her siblings grew up very poor, says her son Albert, in a log cabin not far from the Childress Cemetery in Patrick County, Virginia. Albert and his sister Pearl remember some of the stories she used to tell about those days. Mom told me that she used to pick dandelions, but only in the early spring. They would cook them like turnip greens, and she said they were good. She said after spring they became too bitter, remembers Pearl. Albert recalls Mabel's childhood stories of making ice cream. They would leave a wash tub out to fill with rain and to freeze in the winter. Then they would pour boiling water around the edges to remove the ice and hand spin a bucket of ice cream mixture until it solidified. And they used to gather bushels of chestnuts in wash tubs and bushel baskets. One of the important uses of the chestnuts was to feed and fatten the pigs. Everyone's pigs were notched for identification, and they ran loose until butchering time. Chestnuts were the pigs' main food. Chestnuts were also used for making a kind of coffee and for eating, and chestnut wood was used for heating and building. Pearl remembers her mother lamenting how horrible it was when all the chestnut trees died, because it was a major food source for all the people of the mountain and for the animals. I was sitting in church with her and Dad. The minister was preaching on the sins of smoking tobacco. I raised my hand and asked, "Why does everybody grow it if it's a sin?" Well, practically everyone there, including us, raised tobacco, and there was a loud gasp. After that, every Sunday I was given the largest, fattest pickle ever to eat during the service to keep me quiet. Story is written by Bob, and I'll read you a little bit of that. So this is story number 15 in the book, and this is his autobiography that he wrote and never published because he never finished it. I was born in a mountain cabin, the 7th of 9 children in a section of Patrick County known as the Hollow Section. Our little cabin did not have a floor or window. We were poor, the poorest of all our neighbors, and they were all poor. My folks did not consult me about being born. Possibly if they had, I would have never consented. People did not consult anybody in those days, not even themselves. They married, they had babies, many babies, and that was all. No preparation for them, but they came and managed to live, most of them. We had no doctors or nurses. Sometimes the mothers would have to stay in bed a few days, but usually not many days. One mother was picking berries when her baby was born. She was about half a mile from home when it came. She had quite a debate with herself whether to leave her berries and send back for them, or leave the baby and send one of the other children for it. She finally decided to take the baby and the berries, so she came home with her baby in her apron and her berry bucket on her arm. My mother was in bed when I came, but we had a hard time. I was a crybaby. I could not help it. The cabin was cold. I was naked and hungry. They did not even have seat covers for me, just lying in bed among rags. With no food on the inside and no heat on the outside, I just had to cry. They said I had 3 months colic. Mother had to get up from her bed of rags and leave me. Then I was lonesome. I was now lonesome in addition to being hungry and cold. It didn't take my folks long to find a remedy that calmed me somewhat. All the mountain families kept brandy, and it didn't take much to calm a little sick baby. We did not have sugar to weaken it with, but dipping a rag in molasses and soaking it in brandy seemed to work. I guess that's how I learned to chew the rag. Now, I didn't know what that meant. I had to look it up. Do you know what that means? Hey, I've heard of chewing the fat, just chatting, just sitting around chewing the fat, but I'd never heard of chewing the rag. It's the same thing, apparently. So that was a joke in there. That was how he learned to chew the rag. My 3 months colic lasted till spring. I was born in January. When the warm weather came and I could be left in the sunshine, I stopped crying so much. Mother's health began to improve too, and I got some food. Babies were not weaned in those days, mountain babies, but continued to nurse their mothers till the next baby came along. And if the mother was strong enough and could give enough for 2, she would hold the baby in her arms to feed, and the older one would stand by her side and nurse. I have seen the little one try to push the big one away many times. And there would be some scratching and crying. No one can blame them. They were fighting for their living. Such were the conditions under which I was born. I did not like it much, but there was nothing I could do about it. The babies did not all live, neither did the mothers. Many died. If a man lost his wife, he usually started out very soon to look for one to take her place. Of course, he always wept loud and long over his loss, but he was easily consoled. There's a story of one man who seemed hard to comfort at his wife's funeral. He kept crying as the grave was being filled, and after it was filled, his grief seemed so great that everyone found it hard to leave the grave. He sat with his head in his hands and shook with grief. Finally, the preacher went over to him and placed his hand on his bowed head and said, "My brother, I know it is hard. We all sympathize with you, but we can't do no more. But I can point you to one who can help you bear your troubles." The man stopped shaking, and his tears stopped falling, and he raised his hand and said to the preacher, "Where is she?" If a man lost his baby, and it was very young, he would be consoled with the thought of predestination and say, "This is hard to understand, but it was meant that way, and when a thing's meant that way, it ain't no use to worry." But if a child was big enough to work, he might say, "What a pity, just getting big enough to work." Now, that was the beginning of that chapter. We're going to skip over from being a baby to being all grown up now. I met another very interesting lady about this time. I had managed to get a little Ford T model. Sometimes it would run. And one day while driving along a little mountain road, I overtook this old lady who was walking with her grown son and daughter. I invited her to ride. She said, "I'm afraid to ride that thing." I insisted and finally persuaded her to do it. I got her seated next to me with her daughter next to her and her son standing on the running board. It had no starter. I had to crank it, and when it started, her son jumped off and ran away. She and her daughter tried to get out, but could not get the door open. She was yelling at the top of her voice to try to get it stopped. I rode with her arms around my neck and her cry ringing in my ears, "Stop it, stop it." When we finally arrived at her place, which was not far, we had a real good visit, which was followed by many more. We became great friends, and the friendship lasted till her death, which was only a few years away. She was 90 when we met. She was a great character. I spent many hours with her and listened to her tell of her experiences. She said that she had taken off all her clothes 40 years before and washed all over, but that it had made her sick, and that she had promised her good Lord that if he would forgive her, she would never do it again. I am sure she was faithful to her vow.
Okay, so what's your name?
Rhonda Alderman Horton.
And your grandfather or your father?
My grandfather, Solly Alderman, and my second grandfather, Ewell Burnett, both worked on the construction of the rock churches.
All of them, or
Both
just?
on all of them, but I think maybe one, it was a difference. One did one and one didn't do the other one.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And then Mom remembers seeing Preacher Childress, and she said he always had on a white suit. Now, that's what she tells. And, you know, the kids just loved him.
Oh.
So that's
But
my
when they worked on the
claim to
churches,
fame.
when they worked on the churches, did they use horses, or was this, how did they actually construct those?
I'm sure they use horses to gather the rocks and stuff.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. We made it, Kathy.
We did. It was a great trip, and I'm ready to kick my shoes off.
Me too. Thanks. It was fun.
Oh, the land of cloudless days. Oh, the land of an unclouded sky. Oh, they tell me of a land where no storm cloud rise. Oh, they tell me of an unclouded day.